This is from Marian Edelman, who is actually from Bennettsville, South Carolina. She started the Children's Defense Fund. And she said, "It's hard to be what you can't see. It's hard to be what you can't see." And Billie Jean King also said, "If you can see it, you can be it." And I want to ask you a question. What if you can't see it? What if you are inspiring children who also can't see it in themselves? How do you help them be it? I'm going to tell you my story because I was that person. I couldn't see it. Picture here on the left is me when I was 3. This is my birthday, turning 3. And immediately following that, my mother filed for divorce from my father. And about a year later, we moved to South Carolina. I grew up in Abbeville, South Carolina, in a rural part of our state. And my mom married my stepfather at that time. And at that time, we had nothing. We were very poor. Being able to be something that I couldn't see was not even in my mind at that moment. The picture on the right is a picture of my grandfather, who was an early mentor of mine, who really was the most important person in my life, other than my mother at that time, who helped to inspire me to start thinking bigger. This is us around the kitchen table in Abbeville, and we were doing homework and talking about career aspirations. And at that time, I knew that I loved math, absolutely adored math. I loved science. I loved going to, who was also a mentor of mine in my hometown, and thought, I could probably do that one day. And he said to me, "You can do anything you want to do." I still couldn't see it at that time, but I started thinking about what could I do in my future. As I mentioned, I grew up in Abbeville, South Carolina, and this was just a wonderful place to grow up. I had so many mentors that inspired me along the way, from my kindergarten teacher, Miss Eubanks, from my second grade teacher, Mrs. Burris, my fifth grade teacher, Miss Hall, and on up to my high school chemistry teacher, who said to me, "You have real talent, Phyllis. You have real talent." I spent extra time with her. I volunteered after school. I helped her clean up the lab. I was a teaching assistant before that was really a thing. And I knew that I wanted to go to college. I was the first person in my family to go to college, first generation college student. And coming from a small town like Abbeville, we had 2 AP courses. So it wasn't like I could really get a head start. Didn't even know what an ACT or a SAT was, but somehow had to prepare for it. And my dream of becoming a physician was becoming real. I was mentored by the family doctor in my hometown, Dr. Bob Todd, who I am still very close with today. We actually had a conversation last week. And I knew that I wanted to go into medical school. I wanted to be a physician. I wanted to come back to my hometown and be a family doctor, just like him, inspiring and changing lives in my hometown. And that was a dream that started to become a reality. I was starting to see it, if you will. Went to Clemson University. I majored in biochemistry because I had read that in order to be successful in medical school, you had to pass this course called biochemistry. And instead of just barely passing it, I wanted to own it. So that's why I majored in biochemistry at Clemson University. I've got my first C forever in my life in my first biochemistry course. And then from there, I applied to medical school. At the time, the School of Medicine in Greenville didn't exist. Otherwise, I would have applied there. But I applied to MUSC, which in Charleston, South Carolina. And the first time I applied, I didn't get in. And I thought, well, what now? I'm starting to see this dream that I have for myself. So what I did is I moved to Charleston, and I thought, well, if I have a Charleston address, they're surely going to take my application seriously, right? So I moved to Charleston, and I started a position at West Vaco, which is a forestry company, and I did biolistic transformation of loblolly pine trees to do DNA transformations in those trees. And earned about $8 an hour. And so I learned at that time that this is not what I want to do for the rest of my life, but reapplied to medical school, and luckily I got in the second time. Started medical school and met my husband actually the first day of medical school, Naval Academy guy. Our letters of our first name, our last name started with the same letter. And so we were standing beside each other at the white coat ceremony. And from there, the rest is history. So here comes my first hurdle. We got married in medical school and had a pregnancy in the 3rd year, which was unintended, but very much wanted, and we had to take a little pause in medical school in order to start our family. So I graduated a year late. That was a hurdle, but it did not stop me. And so from there, we went to the University of Vermont for residency. We did this couples match. He's a radiologist. I'm a family medicine doctor. And I finished my residency first after 3 years. We had my son at that time as well. So did it the way, you're never supposed to do it. First child in med school, second child in residency. And then we finished up. I started my first faculty job at that time and learned that I really love medicine, but I also really love being a teacher. I love teaching medical students. I love teaching about medicine and the future of medicine. And that's when my academic educator position really started, was then. So fast forward to Naval Hospital Camp Lejeune. So my husband and I had 2 duty stations before here. The first was Norfolk, Virginia, where I was faculty at Eastern Virginia Medical School. The second was at Naval Hospital Camp Lejeune, which you see the picture here. And this was a time when there was no other educational program in the Camp Lejeune area. Only the Navy had a family medicine residency program. And it was important to me to continue my educational journey as an educator. So I went to the command and I said, please give me a chance. I know you're all active duty here. I'm civilian, and I would love to be a teacher in your program. And at first they said, no, you need to put the uniform on if you're going to work here and do this. My husband was in the uniform, so it was really important to me for our children, for us not both to deploy. So instead, I went back, and then about 9 months later, they said, okay, we're going to give you a civilian position and allow you to teach in the family medicine residency. So I did, and then quickly made a ploy for being associate program director and then program director in the Navy. And I was the first civilian program director in the Navy, and did that for almost 6 years total. My first selection board, I will never forget it, and this is a group of Navy doctors who come together and they're trying to vie for the best medical students for their residency. I showed up. First of all, I'm the only woman in the room, and second of all, I'm the only one not in uniform. And there's this big round table that I remember, surrounded by captains in the Navy, all at different residency programs. And I come in, and they look at me like I have 2 heads first. And then the second thing, why are you in this job? It was taking a promotion opportunity from somebody in the uniform is what was really being said about me behind my back. And I sat down and I looked at all of them and I said, who of you wanted to go to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina? Raise your hand if you wanted to go there. It's a remote area in North Carolina and not a base that a lot of Navy folks want to go to. And they laughed and they said, you're right. And I was there because I really cared and wanted to give back, and I wanted to raise family doctors. And so this is actually them welcoming me back to give a graduation speech a few years after I left, and then very much respected the job that I did there. I turned the program around from 12 citations to no citations and accolades for doing such a great job. And this is one of the most pivotal points in my career as far as accelerating myself as a leader in academic medicine. And so I'm going to fast forward just a little bit. We, from Camp Lejeune, we actually went to San Antonio, Texas. I joined the medical school there and grew in my leadership. I was academic vice chair. And I came back to South Carolina, Greenville, South Carolina, as academic vice chair of family medicine. And then 2 years later, chair of family medicine. And then senior associate dean at the medical school. And then just last July, I became dean of the medical school. And so my leadership journey accelerated very quickly after I got back to South Carolina 7 years ago. And this is a photo of me at match day. We just celebrated our first match day with me as dean, and it was such an exciting moment. This is the day our students find out where they're going to residency, what kind of doctors they're going to become, and I'm literally up there with my spirit hands, because yes, I was a cheerleader. It's my spirit hands saying, I'm so excited for you, I'm on fire for you, were the words that I used with my bright red suit. And these students really did know that I was, and I am to this day. I'm going to talk to conclude my program with about a program that we started this past year. It's called the Primary Care Accelerated Track. This is a program that we designed specifically for disadvantaged students from rural South Carolina, very much like me, who had a dream of medicine but couldn't afford it necessarily and needed a pathway to family medicine residency that was not going to cost them anything. This would have been absolutely transformative to me as a young person attempting to go to college and medical school with basically no means. This program welcomes students in. They go through medical school in an accelerated time frame, only 3 years. They already have a residency program in family medicine for them ready to go in the upstate. And basically the payback model is very similar to the military. They pay back 4 years of service as a primary care doctor in the state of South Carolina for basically this tuition to get them there. This, again, would have been a transformative program for me, and I'm so excited about this program. This is directly going to impact rural South Carolina and access to care in a way that if I would have left medical school, gone back to Abbeville to be the hometown doctor, even though I couldn't because the Navy wasn't going to allow us to do that anyway. But if I would have done that, I would have taken care of one cohort of patients in my small town. And looking back, my journey has actually allowed me to impact hundreds of patients in small town South Carolina everywhere. And so circling back to it's hard to be what you can't see. I couldn't see it in my early days. College was something that I didn't have modeled for me growing up. It was not something it's not that I didn't think it was attainable, but I just didn't have a pathway or know how to get there. The people who got me there were my mom, my grandfather, all of the teachers that I mentioned to you that inspired me, that saw a spark in me and knew that I had something better and greater to give than what my small town could offer me. And now looking back, it's humbling actually to tell this story to you, knowing that at this point in my career, not only am I impacting education for a generation of doctors, but I'm also impacting health care for rural South Carolinians, which is very, very near and dear to my heart. So think to yourself, it's hard to be what you can't see. What student is out there that needs to hear a message like this? There's a dean in Greenville. She started off just like you. There's a dean in Greenville from Abbeville. There's a dean in Greenville who understands rural South Carolina and understands the challenges that you go through to get every step along the way. There's a dean in Greenville that started from basically nothing and made it all the way through. Thank you.